All right.
Okay. Cool.
We're good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
You're
right.
looking good. Yeah. All right. So, first question
Okay.
is, what is polyamory to you?
Um, Forming multiple, healthy, happy, romantic attachments. Yeah, I think that's the core part.
Healthy, happy, romantic attachments.
hmm
Okay. And how long have you been poly?
Since January 1st of this year, and it's September, what, 6th, 7th,
Something like
whatever.
that, yeah.
So like 9 months?
Yeah.
8 months?
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah.
That's
How many people have you dated since then? Since it's, about the multiple.
I've had two. See, I have one relationship that is like leveling up and sort of getting more serious. We're talking about moving in together. I've had one
Ooh,
other, yeah,
that's
then one
cool.
other relationship where we saw each other once a week and it was pretty, we stayed in contact in between and it was pretty steady. That ended like a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have like four people that I see just sort of on a regular basis, like once every 2 or 3 weeks, that have most of them are married, but otherwise have a primary relationship that is not me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're poly as well, or
Yeah. All poly.
yeah, all poly, all the way. Gotcha. Okay. So how do I say that? What? I guess what? How were you introduced to poly?
The guy that I started dating in January, that was the relationship that just ended a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he had a crush on me, and I liked him, and I figured I would try it.
Mm-hmm.
I've had, up until this point, I've identified as pretty effortlessly monogamous. I never had any issues with sort of wanting to be out of the relationship I was in. But I've mostly had relationships that I'd call unsuccessful in that they ended when one of us did not want them to.
Right.
And they just also had been sort of unsatisfying in some core ways. So I would either feel like I was dating somebody that I wasn't super emotionally or intellectually or sexually connected with. There was always sort of something big that was missing.
Right.
And so they don't feel like, looking back, they don't feel like successful relationships to me. So I kind of figured, this guy likes me, I like him, and what I was doing before wasn't totally working for me. So I just
Right.
figured I'd try it.
Right. Right. How old are you?
28.
28.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Looking like you're 17.
Thanks.
18. Okay. We'll at
Thank
least
you.
make you legal. Yeah.
Please do make me legal. That's great.
So, your experience of being poly now versus being monogamous with regards to I don't know, success
hmm
or the feeling of there being something missing?
It's really great in all ways that it's been great and surprising. There are
Okay.
a lot of things that I didn't expect would be awesome. So one thing that sticks out about a lot of the people I had dated before starting poly was this sense that they felt some ownership over my time.
Mm-hmm.
So if we weren't hanging out, they'd still want to know what I was doing and who I was hanging out with. And there were like rules.
Right.
And I really sort of resent having somebody else decide, even if they're deciding this in the sense that socially what we think a relationship is you're accountable to each other for all your time and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not deciding in the way that they're like dictators and I'm going to take over your life, but there
Right.
is some sort of point where somebody feels like they have a right to know what you're doing and they have a right to have an opinion on it and have you change your behavior based
Right.
on that. And I don't really like that a whole lot.
Right.
And so I am finding, now that I'm getting more serious with somebody, I'm finding that there is now a sense of, I talk to him if I'm dating somebody new and I let him know that it's happening and we both have talked about, there are specific people that might make us a little bit more uncomfortable that we will sort of both abstain from romantic attachments to. So there is that element of I'm letting somebody else make some decisions in my life, but it has felt like a lot more of a natural transition, and it has felt like something that we mutually agreed upon.
Yeah, it sounds like there's choice. Like you decided, like, all right, I can do this. Not this is the default setting of of how we do things.
Yeah, and so that it's like all the stuff that had sort of felt wrong with monogamous relationships, where like that connection was missing, or I felt like I was getting controlled. Has just sort of it has worked out in just a completely different way, and I think it's a lot because we've stripped away all the defaults. We're not going to assume anything about how this relationship will proceed, which means we have to negotiate everything, and that sort of open communication means all the stuff that wasn't working for me before. I get to talk about it and talk about ways that I would want to fix it, so it's really nice.
So how was it before then? In terms of wanting to fix something?
So the guy that I dated, I guess who would be my most serious relationship in the last couple years, we had a really nice time together and we were good friends, but he was pretty sexually restrained. He was British, and I'm not stereotyped, but it's true. It's just, he's very British. And it was like, but I think also just sort of as a person, he was a little bit more closed off. And
little tight ass there.
Little bit.
Little tight.
Yeah.
Little baby bit tight ass.
He had like the super posh British accent. It was great. So yeah, it was sort of, he never really let go, I think, or at least not with me. I mean, there was definitely, we were not comfortable with each other, and we weren't comfortable bringing it up.
Let go as in just being open with you. And,
there was always a lot of restraint. And so we didn't really talk about emotional stuff. We never really talked about sort of, are we monogamous? We just sort of were immediately, and we never really talked about sort of what was inbounds and out of bounds in our relationship. And so sort of all that,
because that kind of just came along with being monogamous. Like there's you don't even need to talk about it. It seems like once you're together, there's just things like, all right, all of these things are no longer, and sometimes there are things you don't even know that end up being a problem later. It's like, what, I can't do that.
Right. And that, like, I never liked that stuff. I've never liked talking about, okay, so we're together. So now, like, what does that mean for you? What do you think I'm not allowed to do with other people? What do you think is cheating? Because there are people who would say, making out with somebody at a party doesn't count as cheating.
Yeah.
And when I identified as monogamous, like, that counts as cheating because you're making out with someone. Like, I don't understand how this is.
I was the same way. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Some people were like, no, it was just a kiss. Like, what do you mean it was just a kiss?
Yeah.
It was a kiss.
Like, so, and like now I have this sense of, it's just a kiss.
Yeah, now it's like, please go do that.
So I have this sense of my partner is going out and having lots of fun, and that's great because I love him and I want him to have fun. And where before there was sort of, I guess there was an implicit threat in all of that physical contact, and there was all this sort of establishing what sorts of physical contact are threatening to the relationship. And I guess it almost feels a little disingenuous to me to say, okay, well, getting coffee together is okay. Okay, so like, let's say if we're establishing limits, I might say getting coffee is okay, overly friendly hugs are okay, but no kissing. And if my partner thinks, well, coffee's okay, and overly friendly hugs are okay, and like maybe a little making out's okay, like suddenly it feels like we've established this arbitrary line of what constitutes outside the relationship romantic activity.
Right.
And so I think in a lot of ways this is a simpler approach. Like, you do this stuff that's fun. You and your partner have really talked through all the stuff that is and isn't uncomfortable. So you ideally have a sense of, I'm in this new situation, I'm having romantic contact with a new person. I sort of know what would and wouldn't work for my partner for me to do. Because we've talked through everything and we've mutually decided that having a lot of independence is important and that we want each other to be happy. And I don't know, it just, that sort of the boundary thing is, it's simpler and clearer because we've talked about everything. And it also is just, it respects both of our independence a lot. And it's really